Welcome to another episode of Las Vegas Money Resource. Your host, Travis Scribner, managing partner, Westpac Wealth Partners, joined in studio by an absolutely wildly talented young woman who is making me question everything that I accomplished in high school and quite possibly today. I am in studio by Radhika Shah, the founder of Real Autism Difference. Did I get that whole thing right?
Yes.
Nailed it. So Radhika, before we get started talking about Real Autism Difference, just give me a little bit of background on you, because I know it's not polite to ask a woman her age, but I'm guessing that you are wildly younger than my 39 years.
Yeah, so I'm actually a high school student at Green Valley High School.
Of course you are.
I'm in my junior year, and so just sort of going through that right now.
How's high school?
It's going pretty well. Yeah, I really like it.
We've been on the air for a few years now, and you are our first ever high school student guest. So I'm glad we could finally get that done. So, high school life, 16 years old. How long have you been in the Vegas Valley?
We moved here when I was 5 years old.
Okay, so Vegas is like home for you.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we were in California before that. Okay, so we visit sometimes.
Came out to Vegas, kind of hung out, and now you're here for high school.
Yes.
So the Green Valley Gators?
Yes.
Okay,
Gators.
A rival of my school years and years and years ago in sports, but that's you weren't even alive then, so no reason to even bring that up. So you're in your junior year of high school.
I am.
Okay, so college is looming.
Yes.
What are you thinking?
I'm honestly not sure right now.
No,
so, no.
Like no schools even like narrowed down.
No, maybe just applying to schools in California.
Okay, somewhere in California. Yeah. Your mom is actually in the studio as well, so maybe it's a secret from her where you want to go to school, so you don't even want to say anything. So I'll stop prying because I don't know what's going on there. So you're the founder of Real Autism Difference.
Yes.
So one, the fact that you were even thinking about starting anything in high school is absolutely amazing. Give me a little bit of background on Real Autism Difference and tell me exactly what it is that you guys do.
So, actually, I kind of just want to talk about the inspiration behind starting this organization. So, my younger brother, Umar, is diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And so growing up with him, I've sort of seen a lot of the struggles that he's endured. And that prompted me to do some volunteer work in a special education classroom and with other local organizations. And eventually, April of 2018, for my 16th birthday, I released this organization, which was really great. So it's called RAD, Real Autism Difference. And basically, we are a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping children in Southern Nevada with certain resources, different types of therapies. We have family educational workshops, open play at sensory gyms and recreational facilities. And we're offering different types of programs, and it's been really great.
So it hit close to home. Obviously, this was something that affected your brother. Yeah. And, in working with him, I think there's still like such a monumental gap between, okay, this is something that's directly affecting someone in my family and, working directly to help him and, make sure he was okay. But then to even from there grow to say, I want to do something larger than this. I want to help, more families. I want to help more people that, that are afflicted with autism. Like, how did that come about?
So when I was in middle school, I started, like I said, I was doing volunteer work in my brother's classroom, and they kind of told me, hey, you should do some more volunteer work with other organizations. And I started to do that. And throughout that time, I was really happy about a lot of like the volunteer work I was doing. But I eventually realized that there was something missing in Southern Nevada that I really wanted to see. And that was after school care for my younger brother. There wasn't a place for him to go after school and interact with other children. And I think because I saw that was what was missing in Southern Nevada, I realized that would be my main goal and what I wanted to implement. And so I realized I kind of wanted to start this own initiative to implement that in Southern Nevada.
And so you were like 15 when you were doing this, right? Like you started thinking about this.
Yeah.
Which is just unbelievable. Like I'm thinking back, like my mom, God bless her, she listens to like every show still. It's like my biggest fan. She's probably shaking her head as she hears this, knowing that at 15, I was not doing anything anywhere near this responsible. So, were you always inspired to do something bigger, or was this just kind of just ingrained into who you were?
It was just something that I saw that was heavily needed, and I realized, I can do something about it, and I want to do something about it, and this is something my brother really needs. It's something his classmates really need, and so obviously it took a lot of steps to sort of implement this and try to get things going, but I kind of always knew that I wanted to do something because I knew that I could and I wanted to.
So did you just, I mean, you got to walk me through this. Did you just like go to your folks, you go to your mom and you say, hey, you know, I really want to do something big. What do I do?
No. So, well, so a lot of the organizations I was working with, I started reaching out to other places in the community, and I started, meeting with them for coffee and sort of figuring out, okay, what is available in Southern Nevada? What do we have? And what do you think we need? And so I actually met with a lot of the directors in Southern Nevada to sort of figure out what was needed. And then from there, I started talking about, okay, let me have this like concept of, real autism difference and how can we actually do this? I started talking with people from the school district. I started talking about how we can implement a variety of different programs. I just started networking with individuals, I guess, and telling them about my idea. And that's really how I ultimately started. But I got a lot of my ideas from existing organizations in Southern Nevada because I didn't want to duplicate a lot of the resources out there. I mostly just wanted to work with what was already out there.
Well, yeah. So the market research that you did before you started the organization, obviously it was, you knew there was a problem that you wanted to help work towards. And then it was a matter of working with the existing resources, these different people to find out where the gaps were essentially. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, of course.
So after school care, it sounds like was a big component of that. Why do you think that was missing?
So I just, my brother every day after school, like, a lot of the times he didn't have Safe Key. He couldn't go to Safe Key after school. There wasn't a place for him to interact with other children. And so he would just have to come home. And a lot of the times I would watch him, but I really wanted him as an older sister to interact with other children, like him or have a place to go after school. And when my family and I started looking into it, we realized that there wasn't much out there, and a lot of the after-school programs that existed didn't take children with special needs, especially someone like my brother who, is sort of on the lower end of the spectrum. And so I eventually, I was looking into a lot of those resources, and I realized that this after-school care program simply just didn't exist in Southern Nevada, or there weren't a lot of resources there. And when I was talking to other family members in, California, because we used to live there were a lot more resources for after-school care program. And so I realized this is something that we really needed, and that became a large emphasis. And we actually, January of this year, started our pilot program to start the after-school care program. So we're doing that right now, and then we're going to expand to our summer program and eventually do a program in the fall.
No, that's awesome. I would love to hear more about that. We'll be back with Radhika Shah, the founder of Real Autism Difference, after these messages on Las Vegas Money Resource. Welcome back to Las Vegas Money Resource. Your host, Travis Scribner, managing partner with Westpac Wealth Partners. Find all of our old shows, Google Play, iTunes, Spotify, online at LasVegasMoneyResource.com. In studio today, Radhika Shah, founder of Real Autism Difference. So you mentioned that you're moving towards the pilot program for the after-school care.
Yes.
So just started or is about to launch? Talk to me about this.
So it actually did just start the second semester of the school year. And
so you just started?
Yes, we just started, but it's going really well so far. And so we're getting kids involved in the after school care program, and it's going well. So where's that held at? Is it at different schools? Right now, it's at Beatty Elementary School. So we're holding it there right now. And then eventually, like when we have our summer program and eventually in the fall, we're looking to expand to multiple schools throughout the district. So it's more convenient for different families to drop their children off at different schools around the district. Okay,
so that after-school care now, child finishes school wherever they're going to school, and then parents just get them right now to Beatty for the after-school care, and then eventually plans to grow to other schools from there.
Yes.
So how big can this potentially get?
So, RAD's ultimate goal is to expand this to the point where, every child who needs this type of care has access to it. Obviously, we're just starting with baby steps. We're starting with one school, but it's actually going really well so far, and we're thinking we can expand pretty heavily in the fall time to different schools, and we're meeting with different principals to try to figure out where we can actually implement this. And it's going well, and I think that eventually we'll be able to get to a point where every child in Southern Nevada who needs this type of care can get it. And that's what we're really looking forward to.
No, so when you think, right now, I guess, those providing the care, is it teachers? Is it volunteers? What's happening there?
So right now, it's actually ABA trained therapists who will be there helping a lot of the children. And so they are, a lot of them are qualified to teach, and a lot of them are just helping children. So they are qualified. And the unique thing about our program, I guess, is that all children of different, levels can attend this program, which is different from a lot of the other existing programs. So we do have a lot of trained therapists and individuals there who can fully help all these individuals.
So volunteer-based program, or how are you raising funds to pay for these people right now?
So right now we're actually working with Learning Bridge, which is this company right now that is going to be helping us. And so we're working with them, and they're providing a lot of the therapists for our current program right now. So we're working with another company.
So that was the interesting thing, right? So I think, one thing I love about what it is that you've done is that a lot of times people see a problem or they see something that needs to be done, and rather than fixing it, they just kind of sit there and complain about it and say this should happen, right? You took ownership of a problem that you saw within the community, and then instead of just complaining about it, you went out there and fixed it, which I think is incredible. The world needs far more of that, people of any age, let alone 16-year-olds. So there's a big difference, though, between, just having an idea and moving to action and then actually implementing where you are, right? So, you had the idea, it sounds like around at age 15, and then to get it up and running this quickly is wildly impressive. A lot of times people have ideas, but then actually getting them off the ground is a whole nother thing, especially when it's got probably as many moving parts as what you're doing has. The funding had to have been a concern. The schools had to have been a concern. How did you walk through that, or how did you get those different things secured?
So I think coming into this, I realized the number one thing I needed to do was build a strong board of individuals in the community who could help accomplish a lot of the stuff that we wanted to do, who had the same goals and the same mindset. So I actually just started asking different individuals I knew. I asked my pediatrician if she wanted to join the board. I asked an advisor for an activity I was doing. I asked his wife if I could, if she wanted to join the board. And so I talked with people from the school district and asked if they would be interested. And so really I got this, strong board together, which I think was really an essential component to doing a lot of the stuff that we wanted to do, because I'm just a kid.
No, you were definitely not.
And so I had this vision and I had all this stuff I wanted to do, but I needed help.
So what
I just convinced people, I guess.
No, so that one that's great, right? You figured out at a really, really early age. I think a lot of times people want to preserve their own ego and they want to be seen as like, I'm the person behind everything. But finding those with talents and skills and experience that are beyond your own is absolutely paramount. And not enough people do that. They always want to be the smartest person in the room as opposed to gathering these other smart people. I've got to ask, what were the people's responses, as a 15-year-old comes up to you and says, hey, I'm starting this nonprofit. Do you want to be on the board?
I think a lot of the people, so once I because I obviously talked a lot about RAD's mission or our goals, and I talked a lot about autism and sort of my knowledge from that. And I think everyone sort of had different responses, but I think everyone has just been so supportive so far. Everyone was responding saying, this is something that is heavily needed. We really do need this. And so I think most of the people were on board and really wanted to help out and were really supportive. And that was something really amazing, and I'm really grateful for. And in fact, everyone in Southern Nevada, or in the community in general, has just been so supportive of this initiative. It's been great. Yeah, no,
it's absolutely incredible to hear. I'm just trying to imagine myself if a 15-year-old comes and says, hey, do you want to be on my board? And then seeing, I would imagine it would be, my interpretation of that would be something that would be far lighter than what you were actually ended up doing. Like, oh yeah, for sure, I can help you with your board. And then all of a sudden you see this actual organization come together. Were some of them surprised by the scope of what it was that you were actually doing?
I think, when I first started talking to a lot of these individuals, I did tell them, this is what I wanted to do. And I sort of told them, yes, it is going to be sort of this like large initiative, I guess. But I think people were a little bit surprised, but mostly in a good way, just to see how everything was coming together. And I think that encouraged more and more people to get involved and more people to volunteer and support. And so I think that was the result
Yeah, no, it's funny how that works, right? At the beginning, you just need a few people to believe in you and a few people to buy into the vision. And then once the ball gets rolling, that snowball just gets bigger and bigger with people buying in and believing in you. We'll be back with Radhika Shah, founder of Real Autism Difference, after these messages on Las Vegas Money Resource. Welcome back to Las Vegas Money Resource. Your host, Travis Scribner, managing partner, Westpac Wealth Partners, in studio. Radhika Shah, founder of Real Autism Difference. So I think everyone has, heard of autism, is somewhat familiar with it, is at least heard of it. For those that might be a little less familiar, can you give some background on what it actually is and how it affects people?
Yeah, so autism is something very complicating from what I've, gathered and seen. And every child who has autism is so different. They're affected in a variety of different ways. But essentially, autism affects individuals socially. It affects the way they think. It is a condition that essentially affects how individuals complete different actions. But like I said, each individual is affected by this differently. So a lot of people just have minor forms of autism, and it's just something that inhibits them socially. And for other people like my brother, it's something, that at one point was preventing him from talking, and it really is just, they call it like an autism spectrum, because it's just such a broad range of characteristics that come from it, a lot of different symptoms and outcomes, and also positive, character traits that come from it. So it affects every individual so differently. And I think that is also one of the things that makes it so difficult to sort of treat and help.
Yeah, well, especially given the wide range, right? So you mentioned, at its lightest, it's just something from social interactions.
Yes.
Right. And then to its most severe form, what would that look like?
Well, a lot of the times, many children can't even communicate or speak, and they have a lot of, behavioral tantrums, and unfortunately, they're not able to interact with other individuals. So it can get, pretty severe in that aspect. So it just depends on how it affects, because a lot of the times it just depends on if someone has severe autism or if they're just affected by it a little bit. And so, but everyone is affected by it in such a different way.
Well, you mentioned, so obviously it hits extremely close to home with you. This cause was started and rooted in your brother's needs. You mentioned your brother at one point affected by communication. It seems like, when you're looking at autism, are there improvements over time with it, or can it be treated, or how does that?
So for some individuals, they actually, from what I've seen, they do grow out of it. So if it's just like something, sort of small, and they have Asperger's, a lot of the times they do grow out of it. My brother's story is actually quite unique, and I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. So he was considered to be high functioning before the age of 5, and he was communicating. He was doing second grade math as a kindergartner, and we took a trip to Central America, and when we came back, he had this high fever, and he had it for a few weeks, and this affected him in such a negative way. He kind of decompensated. I guess the fever affected him in a very negative way. He lost a lot of his abilities. I think it was almost like a stress attack or a panic attack that resulted in him losing his ability to speak. He lost his ability with bowel and bladder control. And so he lost so many of his abilities. He couldn't do math anymore. He lost almost all of his communication abilities. And so that, as a young child, and me sort of seeing him, I'm only 18 months younger than him, that was a very difficult time for me and my family, and especially my brother, of course. And so, again, autism just affects everyone in such different ways. And for a lot of individuals, it can be treated. And a lot of times they grow out of it, or no one ever fully grows out of it, but a lot of the times they grow out of it to the point where they are able to integrate into society normally. But for people like my brother, he lost all of his abilities, and a lot of that still remains a mystery. And so it just really depends. And so autism is something that, they still don't know what causes it, or how it affects people, or if it's genetic, or if it's something from the environment, or what causes autism. The rate of autism is actually growing. They say the CDC released a report earlier this year that 1 in 59 children now have it, and 2 years prior it was 1 in 68. So it's almost like an epidemic. The prevalence just keeps growing, and they still don't know what causes it, and it affects everyone so differently.
And that's what I was going to say. I remember, I'm 39. I remember, being a child. It was something you heard about, but it definitely didn't seem as prevalent. And as, the years have gone on, it does seem to be, you use the word epidemic, and it seems to be something that's happening, more and more. Fascinating with your brother. So was your brother diagnosed, on the spectrum, prior to that trip? So or he was, high functioning?
He was diagnosed with autism prior to that trip, but again, he was high functioning. He was, speaking very well. He was doing second grade math. It was just something that was, I guess, more social for him, that was inhibiting him in that aspect. But he was doing very well. And then, after that trip, he sort of lost all those abilities. And so
how do they go about diagnosing autism, or where someone's at on the spectrum? Is there something that people should be looking for with their children, or what does that look like?
From what I've actually shadowed a pediatrician, and from what I learned, pediatricians diagnose a lot of these children between the ages of like 18 months and 3 to 4 years old. And actually recently, pediatricians and doctors, there's been more of a move to diagnose children as early as possible, because they say the earlier you diagnose it, the more of a chance you have to, sort of help it and help children grow out of it. And they have different screening tests, different tests that people can fill out. They have like the MCHAT, or like different types of screening tests that you can fill out to see if your children might have characteristics that are associated with autism. And then from there, you get diagnosed if your pediatrician thinks that you might have something.
Which is fascinating. You mentioned, as early as 18 months to be able to see something. Is that just in behavioral issues with an 18-month-year-old? And obviously, I know you're not a pediatrician, but it sounds like your work around it. You may be a bit more qualified than most to speak on it, right? So they're just looking for different personality traits of someone that young?
Yeah, I think actually with my brother, I mean, I don't remember this, but just from what I've heard, it was eye contact. Like just something as simple as he wasn't making eye contact, and that was already a sign. So they have different signs. I don't know all of them, but I think that is one of them. And then they can definitely sort of from there diagnose it if they have other characteristics or traits.
That's awesome. We'll be back with Radhika Shah, founder of Real Autism Difference, after these messages on Las Vegas Money Resource. Welcome back to Las Vegas Money Resource. Your host, Travis Scribner, managing partner with Westpac Wealth Partners, in studio. Radhika Shah, founder of Real Autism Difference. We have had a number of people who work in the world of nonprofits and in charity work in this town. And I absolutely love it, right? I love, the amount of giving and philanthropy that happens within this city. I think from those looking from the outside in, they have no idea what a tight-knit community it is. I think the one thing that comes along with philanthropic endeavors with nonprofits is it's one really tough area, because you're trying to do these incredible things, and you're trying to give back to the community, and you're trying to help a segment of the population who desperately needs it, but you can't do that for free. Right, it takes money to run these programs. It takes money to grow these programs and develop them, and so every nonprofit, is working to do something or trying to generate revenue in some way to further their cause, which definitely isn't easy. What are some of the things that you're doing, I guess, to spread awareness about what it is that you're doing? What are you doing to raise funds so you can grow? Because even in our brief conversation, I can already tell your vision for this is far greater than just being at one school, right? You want to affect change on a much larger level.
Yes, and so, no, that's exactly what it is. And actually, last weekend, so January 26th of 2019, we had our first annual 5K walk and run, and we held it at Opportunity Village. And so it was a great event. We had a great turnout. We raised a lot of money that is going to go towards our respite care program, our after school care program. We had a great turnout. We had almost 700 individuals attend, so it was a great first event.
Wow, yeah.
And we're going to be holding it every year, and it was a good event. We had amazing sponsors who really, contributed to the cause, and I was really thankful for all the people who supported it. We had amazing people in the community come out and support. It was a walk, it was a run, and a lot of people just had a good time. And that was a great event, and it spread a lot of awareness, and we were really happy about that.
Well, yeah, 700 people out the gate is awesome.
Yeah.
How did you go about spreading the word to get that many people out there for your first one?
Just talking to everyone. Everyone. It becomes one of those things where everywhere you go, you talk about it. If you're going, to get a haircut, you tell someone, hey, we're having this walk, and you give a flyer. It just is something you spread everywhere. You put flyers up. I got a lot of people from my school involved. A lot of the board members were able to bring people they knew. So it's just one of those things where you have to tell as many people as possible. and it works out.
And the word keeps spreading.
Yeah.
So this is going to become an annual event.
It is.
Right, the Rad Walk.
Yes.
Okay.
Every January.
I don't know if that's the name for it. I like it.
It's gonna...
And then also any other events throughout the year?
April of this year, we're going to be having our anniversary celebration. So it's going to be a gala and a silent auction. So for more information about that, you can visit our website.
Great plug.
Yes. www.radlv.org. So that's where you can learn more information about that anniversary celebration.
So are you looking to do that as an annual event as well? So you have the walk, 5K run, be a walk for me, maybe a slight jog at this point in my life.
Me too.
And no, you're 16. There's no way for you in January. And then in April every year, do the anniversary gala.
Yes.
Okay, so super formal gala, silent auction, kind of fancy.
Little fancy.
Slightly fancier than the run.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
So I think it's really interesting, actually. So we had a gentleman from the Opportunity Village on the show recently, and we were talking about how oftentimes you're doing something really unique. I don't know if you did it by design. I guess we'll find out. The busiest time for most nonprofits is towards the end of the year, right? October, November, December. People are in charitable moods. They're giving. 'Tis the season, right?
Yeah.
And I think most of them are doing big events in that time frame, in that part of the year. So a lot of them are competing for the same dollars. You've done something completely different, right? You've got your 5K in January, which is great, but then your gala is in April. So you're well positioned away from a lot of these other nonprofits. Was that by design or?
No, well, actually because we're doing the event in April because we released it April of last year. So that just had to do with sort of when my birthday was and when we released it. And so that worked out. And then January, I guess we just thought would be a good time for New Year. People want to run 5K. Good time.
Time to get New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
The most unselfish birthday present I've ever heard from anyone, let alone a 16-year-old, is to do the anniversary of that or around that. So it's a pretty cool birthday party for you as well, right?
Yeah.
to celebrate that every year, and everyone has to celebrate
cool.
you every year for that. Radhika, you were doing some amazing work, and I think people talk about your generation and what it is that you guys are doing or I guess not doing. There are so many incredible young people out there, yourself included. I thank you so much for what it is that you're doing. I think the city probably thanks you so much for what it is that you're doing because it's proof positive, right? You've got a 15-year-old who had an idea and began executing on a vision and is creating real change, right? And I think that just goes to show for anyone out there listening, you can create a difference. You can create change if you're willing to find a cause that resonates with you and move forward. And I mean, it's truly incredible what you've done. For those listening,
that's so nice.
For those listening that want to learn more about Real Autism Difference, your story, what it is that you're doing, you mentioned the website earlier.
Yes.
Throw that out there again.
www.radlv.org, and you can subscribe to our newsletter too. We have those twice a month.
So radlv.org.
Yes.
For those out there, learn more about the organization, get involved, help a truly awesome cause, help a truly awesome young woman grow and develop her vision. So I appreciate you so very much. I end the show every week. I say be good to one another. And it's truly what you're doing here in this city. So I thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week on Las Vegas Money Resource.